Welcome to Bonehead. You may notice that we're missing one. Missing's a strong word.
And to you, to the podcast listeners, I am now doing air quotes. Missing.
So James isn't here with us. Why isn't James here with us?
The flare-up of the...
Forgot. His junk rotted off.
Yeah. And somehow it magically flared back up.
Yeah, I don't know how. Does his junk grow back? Is James a lizard?
We are slowly being overrun by the reptilians, if you haven't heard any of the latest conspiracies.
No, I didn't know that.
Nice to know you, Alex Jones.
Is it really? Was that an Alex Jones?
I'm pretty sure it was an InfoWars.
Oh,
but I could be wrong. I don't actually listen to InfoWars because I have better things to do with my life.
Yeah, but I could do a whole commentary on whether they should or shouldn't take him off.
Yeah, I know.
But we don't do that show.
Yeah, we don't do that show.
That's not this show.
No.
That would be a show that people would watch and tune into.
I know.
So let's keep on with this horse shit. All right, on this episode, we've got a special treat for you all, and it was a really special treat for us. We're going to do this whole episode, and it's dedicated to Fangoria. Now, we had Chris Alexander, who was probably legitimately the last editor for the run of Fango. But this episode, we have a special guest star, and it's Tony Timpone, Anthony Timpone. He is the longest running editor of Fango history.
Yes.
He sat through almost all the 80s and most of the 90s, up until the 2000s. So it was a treat to have him on because I am a huge fan of Fangoria. As we've brought up on this show many times before for our listeners and watchers out there, Fangoria shaped me as a child because I was a teenager growing up in southeastern Kentucky, and there was nowhere for me to really get access to this other than the big-ass satellite dish outside. Yeah. Thank God I have one of those. And
no toilet, no running water, no sinks, just holes in the ground. But he had a satellite dish.
That's not true, but good. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It paints a better picture.
And plenty of cousins.
Well, one has to procreate. So, anyway, back to it. I found Fangoria, the first issue of Fangoria, which I wish I'd actually pulled out now that we've started this episode I ever bought, was the From Dusk Till Dawn one. And I saw it on a newsstand, and I picked it up at a Rite Aid, I believe. And I started flipping through it, and how that ended up in a Rite Aid in Eastern Kentucky is beyond me.
I have no idea.
I'm assuming somebody checked the wrong box,
yes.
Right? And I started flipping through it, and I thought, this is amazing.
My God, this is supposed to be Fancy Cat magazine. What did I do?
Yeah. Oh, that old hooker and all her cats sitting there reading about all the blood and Fango. Where's the cats? Where's the cat? But it was funny she got the cat people one.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving right along. So I got Fangoria, and it mentioned Sam Raimi 2 or 3 times. It talks about Quentin Tarantino. And this was right around 95. I would have been
30,
old.
30.
17, 16, 17, and it just opened my eyes and ears. And because Fango, the great thing about Fangoria was that it talked to the people who made the movies. Not, I would say, similar to us in the sense of we do that. I mean, of course, Fangoria did it on a grand scale.
On a higher level.
And Tony Timpone's going to talk about all the access that they had because before, believe it or not, there didn't used to be podcasts or YouTube shows and all those other things. There was
fan magazines.
There were fan magazines, and we could trace this back. We probably will eventually do an episode about fan magazines, and we could go back to do Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Yeah,
we could do
Starlog.
All that stuff. We may do a whole episode on that, but right now we're going to concentrate on Fango. Where's that going with that?
I have no idea.
Hopefully Haley can cut that part out right there.
Did you start thinking about that feisty chipmunk that you saw outside on your tree out there?
It's fine. You mean the one wearing the sexy pink outfit, holding those
Do
nuts.
not talk about Gidget that way.
Holding all those nuts. Anyway, so.
And Gidget was a mouse, by the way.
Shut up.
Just pointing that out.
For a little history of Fangoria, this is the first Fangoria. Now, who is this on the front of it, Chad? Gojira. Right? Godzilla. Gojira was on this. 25 years of Godzilla. And then Dawn of the Dead, who's that? Dr. what?
Dr. Huh?
Dr. Ree?
Doctor Who invades the
Hold
US.
on. Now, this came out in, was it 78 or 79? Let's take a look for our listeners listening
Joe
to us right now.
Joe is taking his magazine out of the sleeve, and oh my God, it's depreciated in value.
That's true. So this is the premiere issue that does not have an effing date on it. That would have been helpful. August 79. So this came out in August 79. They used to have these cool posters in the kids would rip out. If you're watching right now, you can see it. It was in the middle of it. So when you collect Fangorias, as I have, it's hard to find them with the posters still in them sometimes. Except for nerds like me who's like, oh my God, don't take it out. It's going to ruin it. So, right now we are in the year of our Lord, what?
2040.
2018. Thank you so much, Chad. You have missed a few years. Your daughters are grown. They're pregnant with twinsies, and they hate you.
Continue.
Because you were not there for them. Because you were somewhere else for the last 22 years.
And half the world's populated by those weird rat mutants that you spawned off.
Let's hope. With Mitzi and their nuts. Mitzi's funnier than Gidget. Anyway, so this is 1979. We're now in 2018. Here's what's on the magazine. 25 years of Godzilla, Dawn of the Dead. We never talk about that anymore.
Nope.
Godzilla, totally out. They never made any more of those movies.
Right.
That's no longer prevalent. Doctor Who invades the U.S. Oh, did he?
Yeah.
He invaded the hell out of it.
Yeah, not then.
He got right up in the U.S., especially in the 2000s, right? Then we have Galactica's Lost Aliens. Now, what would Galactica be? That would be of a Battlestar variety. That went nowhere, right?
No, yeah.
Interviewing Christopher Lee, never heard of him. Making of the Creature from Black Lagoon, we totally forgot about that picture.
Best Universal monster.
And a photo preview of a movie coming out called... Alien. Alien.
Damn, hooked on phonics.
Over there on the other wall is a star log behind us with Alien on it, but this is our Fangoria episode. I find it fascinating that we're talking about 39 years later.
Yeah.
So we're watching the same shit.
Yeah.
New stuff, we're watching the same shit. 3/4 of this stuff is still just as relevant. We've got a new Godzilla coming out next year. Doctor Who is more popular now than ever before in history.
In the U.S., it's more popular now than it was ever.
I would say that it's more popular probably even in Britain. I know it was popular in Britain. It was huge, but I don't live in Britain. But I can't imagine that it's less popular.
Right.
Can you? Doctor Who, Alien. Alien never went away. We just got a new Alien movie last year.
I know, and well, I don't know. Are we getting another one?
I don't know. I love it, but God, I wish they'd stop. So, this isn't completely dedicated to horror. There was a little bit of horror in it, but this was not a huge magazine. Here is number 4, and I'm going to hold up number 4. Who's on the front of that?
That would be Leonard Nimoy.
As?
Singer of the Hobbit song.
Yeah, that's one thing he did. Oh my God, it's the guy that directed Funny About Love.
Spock and the New Aliens of Star Trek.
Which is true, but why the hell would you pick that one out? I just wanted to be obscure. Oh, he was the guy that was in Mission Impossible. The show.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Anyway, so Spock and the New Aliens.
It's amazing that Donald Trump is actually on the cover of this magazine.
Shut up.
That's the vampire from Salem's Lot.
Yeah. Now, next one we've got is 6. Now, there's a little bit of horror, but what's on the front of number 6?
That would be the robots from Buck Rogers.
Haley, you're behind the camera, correct? You're recording all this. Can our audience hear you? Who is on the cover of number 6 Fango?
C-3PO and R2-D2.
That's right.
From
Now,
Buck Rogers.
Why would they put them on there?
Because The Empire Strikes Back was just being released, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's getting close. Because it sold magazines. It's the reason Freddy Krueger was on it 5,000 times in the 80s.
Right.
So, what I'm trying to show to you is that Fangoria wasn't always necessarily dedicated to horror.
Right.
That's where it found its niche. Now, there were several different covers I could have found. I love The Thing. There's a great one with Return of the Living Dead. I could name 100. Fangoria should be known for some of the greatest covers of all time. Some of them absolutely disgusting. I don't know how they got away with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because even with the one you're getting ready to show, with the picture from The Thing with
you just ruined it.
With the head crawling across the floor. Back then, I'm surprised that even got it onto the shelves.
So, but I had to pick, maybe not the best cover, but one of my favorite, because it's one of my favorite movies of all time, is John Carpenter's The Thing. and it's an introspective of Rob Bottin and the effects of the thing. It doesn't say anything about John Carpenter.
Nope.
It doesn't say let's interview Kurt Russell.
So that was one of the cool things about Fangoria is they actually went and talked to, much like our show, they sought out the people behind the scenes who actually made the movies what they were.
Right. And I just latched onto it like a lot of people did. Now,
Though I do want to kind of read what the Monsters versus Wrestlers article is about.
well, you can take it out and read it. You want to do that while the rest of us do the show? Yeah. You want to do it while... Here, go, Norberg. Go put it together. Put this puzzle together.
Ghost James Wang.
Oh, James Wang. This is one of the last two that came out before it went out. I think the last one that actually didn't make it to print, and there's a few copies, editor copies. We talked about that with Chris Alexander.
Yeah.
It was the monkey monstrosity from Victor Frankenstein. Bless that cover from a few years ago. This would be Elvira. It's a great cover, and probably one of the best shows that made it 3 seasons that should have went on longer, but I don't know how it made it 3 seasons.
It may still come back. There's
Hannibal.
talk.
I know. I loved Hannibal. Hannibal was great. Look, the covers are great. They're amazing. They're vivid. They look wonderful. And if you're into it, it was the best magazine, or one of the best magazines, not just for horror, but for people who were in how movies were made.
Yeah, a lot of people would tune into they would buy Entertainment Weekly, but Entertainment Weekly was most still is fluff. There's not really anything in depth about the actual movies. It's, hey, this movie's coming out. Here's an interview with this actor, big name. But Fangoria would actually go in and they would cover the obscure.
Absolutely.
One of my fondest memories of Fangoria was me and Joe, like I said, we went to college together.
We did?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh,
no, I'm
I
just
remember the
kidding.
times when you used to let me lay in your hands and you do my hair, whisper sweet nothings into my ear.
Yeah, and slowly shave you.
Yeah, me too.
But once again, Haley's giving us a horrified look. But no, there was
He didn't slowly do it.
the other thing about Fangoria too
It was in
is
my face.
you would see whole articles about movies that they would cover, and then you probably would never see that movie.
Yeah.
One of my fondest memories of Fangoria was there was a movie with Warwick Davis where he was it was kind of a rip off of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Homage of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where he was just part of this weird family of mutants who were killing people. And I was fascinated. I wanted to see this movie, and it never came out. And even on his IMDb page, it's not even listed on his IMDb page, but you have a magazine over there with proof that it was shot. But that's one of the main reasons I love Fangoria is I would always open it up and find some movie that I'd never heard of that they officially made me excited to go try to find.
Another great thing, and we've talked about it in other episodes, was they would do the fear film forecast. So it'd be movies that were coming up, and one of the best things, if you come into my house, I'll let you look through them, have a couple of drinks, and we'll go through specifically in the 80s and 90s and look at all the movies that were supposed to happen that never actually happened.
Right.
There's 2, all right? Here is, Friday the 13th. That was supposed to come out May the 13th, 2016, the new one.
Huh.
Did we get that? We didn't get that.
No.
We didn't get that one, did we? No. And The Conjuring 2 was supposed to be in the Enfield Poltergeist. Is that what that was about?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I couldn't remember.
Well, The Conjuring was actually an amalgamation of several different movies.
Well, part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to find another one if it made it or not. No, okay. So, it was a lot of fun to look through those. I have, during my late 20s, early 30s, when I had a little bit more disposable income, I started going back and getting all the ones I missed. I missed some through college for obvious reasons because I was interested in other things and didn't have as much money. And
yeah, your collection of Furbies was fascinating.
It was.
You would just walk in.
If only we could cut to an outtake right now of me covered in Furbies.
Yeah.
So.
That's
not a bad Furby.
No, thank you.
Well, that's pretty good. You must have hung around a lot of Furbies. I know you go to a lot of furry conventions.
I was the governor of Furby Town.
The hell is Furry Town? There's so many inappropriate jokes. Back to what I was saying. I actually went back, and now I have the complete. It goes from 1 all the way to the last mass-published Fangoria.
Now, let me ask you a question personally. Why did you do that? I mean, was it just to do something, or was there a reason you wanted every single Fangoria?
Why do people climb mountains? I'm not actually being
Why
sarcastic.
do birds suddenly appear
every time you are near? Just like me, they want to be. Is it close to you?
Yeah, I don't know. Answer the question.
I love Fangoria. I wanted to have them all, and I had probably a little bit extra shekels, and I thought that was what I should spend it on instead of having a nice new ride. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And what's funny is Chad and I had this conversation. I don't know if he remembers. I remember finishing it because I passed up the opportunity to buy somebody's complete collection, but I was like, oh, I already own half of them. By the time I bought singles and lots, it would have been so much cheaper for me to have bought that whole collection and just sold off the ones I didn't want.
Right.
I still have a box this long of doubles and triples of things because to get one, I would sometimes buy a lot of 5.
Yeah.
Because it was just as cheap, and why not?
Right, right.
Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're going to do heroin, do heroin.
Yeah.
Haley, if you've taught me anything, is that if you're going to do heroin, say it, Haley.
Do heroin.
There we go.
I'm glad you finally learned.
I am. I'm glad you finally taught me. Padawan.
You're next.
What are you going to teach him? Is it heroin too?
Yeah. Probably should keep all the boneheads on the same
I'll
stuff.
be damned if y'all ever make me give up PCP.
So anyway, I'd love to
Lift
talk.
this car.
I'd love to talk to you about Fangoria if you're ever interested in it. By all means, email us if you have questions. If there's a certain episode or a certain issue you're missing, let us know. Or if you'd ever want to talk about it, if you want some comments.
I mean, is there for you being an avid reader of Fangoria?
I'm not anymore.
Being as in love as you are of it, is there a particular article that stuck out to you that you loved more than any? Like, was there one that just...
That's a good question.
That you have a fond memory of?
I can't think of anything off the top.
Because sadly, the only fond memory I have of Fangoria is that Warwick Davis article. Because
I just remember hundreds. There's a good one with Tarantino about the From Dusk Till Dawn. There's so many, I couldn't tell you one that just sticks out. I really think of covers and all the movies. Oh, you know who was in it a lot, who didn't get certain movies made, is Romero. I know we've talked about it before.
Yeah, Romero.
Romero, the Del Toro of his day.
I was getting ready to say, yeah, the Del Toro of the 80s.
Yeah, the Del Toro of the 80s is a good way to put it. And I love looking, I wouldn't say articles, I would say one of my favorite things is looking back and thinking what could have been. Mick Garris almost did a Mummy. Romero almost did a Mummy.
Yeah, yeah.
And then with Stephen Sommers, did a Mummy.
And then, who did the last one with Tom Cruise?
Oh, God, that one guy.
Yeah, I forgot.
Right, he's a writer. He's a screenwriter.
Yeah.
He made that the Winter movie. What's it called? The Winter Story. You ever seen it?
No.
Oh, don't go. Don't bother. Don't bother. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not any good. But anyway, we're getting way off topic.
Yeah.
So, I want to wrap this up because we got a cool interview with Tony Timpone. So, James was there for that one.
Yeah.
Chad couldn't make it.
Nope.
So this episode's kind of weird. So take it away, Tony Timpone. Thank you so much for doing this interview. It meant the world to us. So let's go ahead and get started. So where are you from, and how did you get started in journalism?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I started writing for various horror and science fiction magazines while I was in college at NYU, interviewing people from Star Trek and Star Wars and Tom Savini. This is like the early 1980s.
Right.
And so I was networking, still in college, writing, getting published by, people like Forrest J. Ackerman and Dave McDonald and Starlog.
Uh-huh.
And, it was always my dream to write for Fangoria. And then when I graduated college, a position opened up at Fangoria and our sister magazine, Starlog. And, went right to work. I achieved my goal of breaking into Fangoria right out of college. It was a dream come true.
Can I stop you there and call you a lucky bastard?
And, what's that?
I said, can I stop you there and call you a lucky bastard?
Yeah, you sure can.
Yeah.
So, so it's been, an embarrassment of riches ever since.
Well, it's interesting. Where did your we're always interested in how people actually caught the bug, of how you caught not necessarily the movie bug for you, but the horror bug. Where did you catch that at? Where did you? Was it sometime in childhood? Was it a movie, a book, a TV show?
I grew up reading comic books and famous monsters of filmland.
Uncle Forey, yeah.
Driving and seeing Hammer movies and American International Pictures, and from a very young age, and I just was always attracted to horror, science fiction, fantasy. I didn't play hockey or football. I did play baseball and stickball and ran track, but most of the time, I'd rather be in a movie theater than on a sports field. And I'd go to conventions, and I just enjoying it. I just had a passion for it. Watching the old Universal horror movies as a kid, and King Kong, seeing Hammer movies in theaters growing up.
Right.
So it's just part of my DNA.
Was there a particular person that introduced you to it? Did you have a mother or a father or a family member who was into that?
Not really. No, not really. Luckily my parents never took me to Disney movies growing up. I'll say that much. So they did tend to, see, we'd go see films in the genre, I suppose.
Right.
But they weren't horror fans by any means. But like I said, they never took me to the Sound of the Music. They never took me to the Sound of Music. They took me to Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. So,
yes.
Maybe they thought those were kids' movies. I don't know, but I'm glad they did.
No, I have a similar story too. My mother introduced me to The Exorcist at 11 when she and my father were getting a divorce, and I think she thought that was a good age for that. I don't know that she's right, but it scarred me in the best possible way. So I totally understand. So you started at Fango.
That was the one movie my parents wouldn't let me go with them to see The Exorcist. That was the only one. They let me go see The Godfather Part 2, The Omen, Scream Again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Sentinel. But they drew the line at The Exorcist. They didn't want me to see that. I was only 10 years old, I think, 10 or 11. So that one they drew the line. I had to wait till it was re-released in theaters till I got to see it.
Well,
on the big screen.
To remind our audience, back in the day, you didn't necessarily, if you didn't catch it when it was a first run, you may never see it again unless it was on a Saturday matinee or a late night thing on your local television. It's not like DVD and video existed at that time. Yeah,
well, a lot of the big movies, like Jaws and The Exorcist and Star Wars, they were re-released every few years. So that was the great thing. This is before cable and stuff.
Right.
So if you missed it the first go around, chances are you waited a few years, you could see it again in a major re-release too, not just a revival house.
Right. Absolutely.
Those films, they would just keep putting them out, but time and time again.
Yeah. So you started at Fango. What was one of your biggest challenges? What do you think either your biggest challenge or what do you think you brought to Fangoria that it was missing? Because you started in 1985, correct?
Yes. I would say my biggest challenge was following in the brilliant footsteps of Bob Martin and David Everett. I really looked up to those guys. I thought they had, a great sense of humor. They were very, Hunter S. Thompson-esque in the way they, ran in their writing and the whole vibe of the magazine. It was very underground, and of course I wanted to keep a lot of that. But also I needed to increase Fangoria's readership because, there were times before I started where they were close to, canceling Fangoria if it wasn't selling.
Right.
This was in the early 80s. Back then there wasn't the horror boom that we have now. Horror wasn't quite as popular. Now it's an embarrassment of riches. Every weekend a new horror film comes out. We're buried in horror TV shows and movies and Netflix and Shudder. It's just unbelievable how much horror is at our fingertips. But back in Fango's early days, it was it was very underground. Big studios would maybe release a handful of horror films a year. Now again, it's like every weekend there's a new horror film dropping. It's just amazing. There's just so much content to choose from. And it's a very exciting time to be a horror fan. So anyway, the Fangoria, like I said, was the sales weren't that good. So and then a character named Freddy Krueger came along, and it became this big sensation. We really celebrated Freddy in the magazine, and we noticed every time we put Freddy Krueger on the cover, our sales went through the roof. And then the studio started getting into horror again, and all the slasher icons were coming in and out of fashion, and
right.
And everybody was doing horror. So we had to back Fango's early days, there wasn't as much studio horror. So I knew I had to embrace horror in all its forms.
Right.
Big budget, low budget, to attract more readers, and I was successful at doing that because the sales on Fango went through the roof in the 1980s, the late 80s. The sales were incredible. That's why we created Gore Zone and Horror Spectacular and Bloody Best of Fangoria, Fangoria Poster magazine. The magazine was incredibly popular and became even more popular when we were doing our conventions. It was just amazing. It was a great time. So I wanted to give the magazine also a more professional sheen. It still had that underground vibe, but I wanted the magazine to look better, be designed better, make it more even more collectible, and I took a lot of interest in how the layouts were done and things like that. And I picked out every single photo that appeared in the magazine, all the cover photos. Fangoria was a very visual magazine, and I really embraced that. And that there really wasn't as much as that when it was first starting out. But I wanted the magazine to be more slicker.
Right. You talked about several different things. Actually, I wanted to either mention or ask you about, because I knew that when Freddy is not only not only New Line is the Freddy that House built. I knew that it also built Fangoria to a certain extent. And one of the things I wanted to let you know is that I own every issue of Fangoria, and it took me years. Well, yeah, but I discovered it like a lot of people in my teenage years. And what I always loved about Fango, I think the first episode, or the first issue I ever picked up, I keep saying episode, was that it was an interview with Sam Raimi. And I was a huge Evil Dead fan, and it was one of the few places, and I've heard Tarantino say this about Fango as well, it was one of the few places you could go to, irrespective of whether it was horror, that you were actually talking to the people behind the scenes, directors, writers, production people. Does that make sense? Special makeup effects, Dick Smith, Tom Savini. I could just keep going on, and that was one of the things I loved about Fango, was that I always knew that I could read about the people that I admired and wanted to aspire to be.
Yeah, nobody turned it down, because we were a way of reaching their audience. So,
right.
Everybody, came to Fangoria to be interviewed, from Quentin Tarantino, Sam Raimi, to Francis Ford Coppola.
Right.
We were our audience, and a cover story was very important to them, and they really pursued us. It was a very exciting time,
Well,
and as horror became even more popular, sometimes it'd be a challenge in the early days to find something to put on the cover of Fangoria, but then as horror became more and more popular, we have 3, 4, and 5 choices. Oh, what are we going to put on the cover this month?
Right. Well, that leads me to my next question. I could talk to you an hour about the Gonzo journalism that was going on, and some of the great stories you could have probably tell me about in the office, if that's what you're saying. That being said, I'd like to ask about who was maybe one of your favorite people to interview or have met, or maybe your craziest story with either an actor, director, someone who was just off the walls, but it was amazing. Tough question, I know.
Craziest person.
Well, or not crazy, but maybe one of the most fun, one of the best.
One of the best. It was a real, a treat interviewing Christopher Lee.
Oh, I can imagine.
Sat down with him for 3 hours in London, and that was an amazing experience. And one of the most fun times I had interviewing someone was Mel Brooks when we had him on Fangoria Radio. Because I grew up with his movies, and he was a horror fan too, and he produced some great horror movies like The Fly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd say that was one of my all-time favorite experiences, meeting Mel Brooks and also Christopher Lee.
Yeah,
and Vincent Price is another one, though I didn't interview Vincent Price. We had him at a convention.
Right.
He was a childhood hero, so meeting him was great.
Did you have a Vincent Price? Yeah. Well, we're sitting here, and if you could see, we do the show in my basement, surrounded by movie memorabilia, and I have a Blazing Saddles and a Young Frankenstein original one-sheets behind me. So.
Whoa, that was so cool.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge nerd, figuratively and literally. But talking about Mel Brooks, I suppose this is when Dracula Dead and Loving It was coming out.
Mhm.
That's what I assumed. So.
What was the question?
I said that was probably when Dracula Dead and Loving It came out, is when he was on Fangoria Radio?
No,
Mel Brooks?
It was actually when Young Frankenstein was on Broadway when he turned.
Oh, really? Oh.
He came in to promote that, and he was going to stay for just one, 15, 20-minute session, and he wound up staying on for half the show. He was on for like an hour and a half. He was having so much fun. And then I interviewed him another time for, I think it was the 30th anniversary of The Fly. I had a one-on-one call with him, and he was great then too.
Oh, that's.
And, I've interviewed Tarantino over the years. He's never refused me, for an interview, and it was always good to talk to him. And it's been a great ride.
Yeah, I'm really jealous of those three. Mel Brooks, Christopher Lee, and Vincent Price would really be our big three as well. And I can't imagine. So out of all the issues, which one do you think you're most proud of?
Issues of Fangoria?
Yeah.
Probably the anniversary issues. Like we did a great 35th or 30th anniversary. I thought that was a great issue. Fangoria 100, 150, 200. I loved all the big marker issues like that. Those were always fun because we always sat down with all our favorite people, like Wes Craven and George Romero, to get new interviews from them, and got celebrities to write articles. And, those were always great issues. I always had a lot of fun with them.
Right. Yeah. So one of my favorite things was raving and drooling, and I had the chance to meet David Shaw a few years ago. So I was wondering, how did that come about?
How did that come about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Starlog used to have, Starlog had a sister magazine called Future, which became Future Life, and Harlan Ellison used to write a column for that. And in Starlog, they had a column written by David Gerald. And I loved reading these opinionated pieces from these really knowledgeable people. So, when I took over at Fangoria, I decided, we should get some of the splatterpunks writing for the magazine, and the horror actors themselves. So, we'd get Robert Englund to write a set diary, Angus Scrimm, Kane Hodder, Doug Bradley, et cetera, and also I wanted to have a regular thing, so I turned to David Scow, who was a friend of mine, one of the splatterpunks, and said, "Would you like to do a column?" And he said yes right away, and that became a really unique voice for the magazine, and it was always very well written and very funny, and always the highlight of every issue was Dave's columns. And then I did the same thing with Warzone. I wanted to have that very columnist heavy, so I had Chaz Ballin writing the column, and Tim Lucas, Steve Bissett. I always thought it was get people who have a good point of view, that you couldn't find anywhere else.
So you earlier you said you wrote for Starlog as well when you were in college and stuff. What's the knowing that they were sister magazines and things like that? How was the climate different? What did that look like as far as, because I'm a big science fiction fan, and Starlog when I was younger was the Bible. So what was that? I mean, as far as, was there a difference between it, how they were ran, as you transition into running Fangoria?
Starlog was a lot more serious than Fangoria, obviously. But the guy who edited Starlog when I started was Dave McDonald, who also edited Fangoria for a brief spell. While I was getting my wings as editor, and so he liked horror too. But Starlog was always a little drier than Fangoria, a lot more serious, I would say. What Fangoria was, the rude kid in the back of the classroom.
Yeah.
So, but it was a different time. I go the way I got my start in the industry was I used to go to horror and science fiction conventions.
Right.
And I would meet, like the first interview I ever did was with Tom Savini. I met him at a convention. And then I went to a few science fiction conventions, and various Star Trek people were there, like Merritt Buttrick, who played Kirk's son in Star Trek 2 and 3. I interviewed him. Anthony Daniels, who played C-3PO,
Right.
just called it. So it was as simple as time. So all I had to do was call his hotel room and say, "Hey, I'd love to interview you." Sure. And then I sold that article to a magazine called SF Movie Land. Like I said, it was a simpler time, and it was very easy to get access to these people, not like today, where the things are a lot more controlled, and you don't really have that.
Oh, do we know?
It was a good time.
Yeah, and everyone has a podcast, and everyone has an interview. Yeah,
Exactly.
We're just
Everybody has, wants you.
Yeah,
If
and
you're a celebrity for something.
yeah, absolutely.
Just like Fangoria used to be the only one doing a horror convention. Now there's a different horror convention every weekend. We used to be the only game in town, and now there's so many shows.
Well, I'm going to divert a little bit from Fangoria and just talk a little bit about the creation conventions that you used to do, or what the conventions that were done. Actually, I met you in Chicago when I met Romero at that con several years ago. Don't worry, I don't expect you. And to remember, and Toby Hooper was supposed to be there. And I bought my wife bought the platinum gold package where I got all the interviews, and I had all my Toby Hooper stuff, Poltergeist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, ready to sign, and he was a no-show. And it's just one of my wonderful. I know.
It didn't happen as much as our show as some of the other shows, but Toby was kind of like that. It is a little flaky that way.
Oddly enough,
we got very few cancellations, I'm happy to say.
Yeah, and it was a great show, and it was actually it was the first big con I'd ever been to, and I really had a good time. But oddly enough, we've met people who knew Toby later on, and it was never a shock to anyone we've ever told that story to.
It's very, very similar with Gary Busey.
Gary Busey, yes. We both moderate for cons through the Midwest and do a lot of panels, and we have some stories about that as well. And actually, we have a good Harlan Ellison story we met a few years ago. But we're here about you, going back to how did you get started with producing some of the movies in the 90s, like when we were talking about Moontrap and some of the other ones?
No, not Moontrap. It was Mind War.
I'm sorry.
Children of the Night and Severed Ties. Well, that came about when we produced a Fangoria TV commercial in the late 80s with Angus Grimm as the star. And I helped put that together. I got Angus to do the commercial. I got permission from Don Coscarelli to let us use the character and the Silver Spears, et cetera, et cetera. And it was such a great experience making this commercial. Publisher's son, this guy Steve Jacobs, and some of the other people who worked on the commercial thought, hey, this was such a good experience. Why don't we make some movies?
Right.
And they got involved with a producer named Chris Webster, who was involved with the Hellraiser movies and some movies at New World Pictures. And everybody put their heads together, and they took they found three scripts they liked, and they looked in at of TriStar, the video division, and they made a deal. They said, yeah, let's do these movies. And my part in it was, Tony, who do you have in your Rolodex? Who could do the effects for these movies? Who do you recommend as a star, actors, et cetera, et cetera? Who's popular in horror? So I was a consultant on all the movies and went on the set of the second one, the third one. I was on the set of that one. They were all filmed in Eagle River, Wisconsin.
Really?
And they had some really good cast people in them, like Oliver Reed and Angus Scrimm, Bruce Campbell. They were fun little B movies. They had played on the Sci-Fi Channel for years.
Right.
And, it was a good time. Guys, I think I have a business call I have to take.
All right, Mr. Timpone, I hope this wasn't as bad as you thought it would be, and I will message you about scheduling it again.
It was a lot of fun, and a lot of fun. Look forward to chatting some more.
All right, thank you. All right, bye-bye.
This is still on. This is on. Hello. Are you recording?
Are we still recording? Haley actually left.
There was a kitty.
There's a kitty that started screaming.
It was limping.
That I have never saw a cat before.
I wonder if it was out here and somebody hit it or something.
I'll tell you the story. So the cameras are rolling. Well,
yeah,
we were walking in and we heard a cat, and I thought, oh, it's Pickles, who is I have two cats, Pickles and Ash. And then I thought it was Pickles. It sounded like Pickles. And I was, well, how did she get out? How did she get out? Started checking the bushes. Couldn't find her. If you walked in tonight, you saw cat food out there because I couldn't find the cat.
Yeah.
And so...
I almost... my glasses fogged over. I almost kicked over the cat food.
Yeah. So... Yeah,
we're just narrating
what happened with the cat. And Haley just walked back in. She's back now. Hey, welcome back. Thanks, Tony. That was a great interview. We really appreciate it. We're hoping...
I'm glad I was there to sit through it.
I answer your question that you asked me earlier about my favorite episode. I will say, or favorite... Why do I keep saying episode like a dumbass? Anyway, about my favorite is...
Probably shouldn't shoot heroin before it...
But it makes me feel so good. Why don't I lose weight on heroin?
I know.
You would think, right? Between that and the 8 balls.
And you have a somewhat decent teeth, too. Go figure.
That being said, back to what we were going at. David Shaw wrote Raving and Drooling through a lot of them, and some of those are great. I actually met him, and he combined all those into a book and signed it for me, and I actually really enjoy some of those. And it's a commentary about the horror industry. If you don't know who he is, he wrote Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. He wrote The Crow, the one with Brandon Lee, the good one.
Yes.
The original one. And he also wrote one of my favorite masters of horror, the Pick Me Up, about the competing serial killers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he's a wonderful writer. Check it out. He wrote a lot of Raving and Drooling. Those are some of the things I really would... Yeah, those are some of my favorite memories because I enjoyed his commentary on a lot of things. I wish we had more of that as the magazine went on. And I missed when they took out the big poster. I mean, I never got to use them, and I obviously never took them out, but it was kind of fun, especially if you were a kid.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I actually did take the posters out.
Well, I didn't really get into it till later, till I knew better.
Yeah.
So, and now I would have had to go back and buy those damn things too. Oy. Anyway, so thank you so much, Tony Timpone. That was our Fangoria episode. The cool thing is what? Fangoria is doing what? It's coming back.
It's coming back. They keep posting about it. We're going to tag them on Twitter or on our social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, and let them know that we've dedicated a whole episode to Fangoria. Hopefully, it's going to be coming back and better than ever. I'm going to get my subscription in. I want to see them. I want to have them in my hand monthly, or they actually came out a little less than monthly. It was about 10 magazines a year. So I'm excited about it. One last thing. You need to subscribe. You need to share this on your social media. All right? We need to get our numbers up. We just did our 50th episode. We were further along than we ever thought we would be, but we want to be even better. It is imperative for us to get subscription up so that we can get more and more guests. Right, Chad?
Right.
This is the thing that we run into all the time, and I know that people are probably sick of hearing it, and I know if you listen to us or watch us all the time that you're supporting us, and I appreciate it, but share us on your social media, whether that be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Grindr. I don't give a shit. Wherever we can pick up people to listen or watch
please do that.
Right.
Especially Grindr. iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, subscribe. Right?
Leave comments, rank us.
Absolutely. And email us, message us, find us on social media. We don't mind answering questions. We proved that with the 50th episode. Thank you so much. This is Bonehead. We're out.
It needs a home, and it's.
I swear I am not making up a word of this. A cat. We're in the middle of the episode. A kitten. It couldn't be more than 4 or 5 months old. Limping, walks up to the door and starts screaming outside the fridge
Making
doors.
eye contact with everyone.
Making eye contact.
Yeah, like if you watch the video, I keep looking to the left because I can't.
Because there's a
ignore
cat
the
outside screaming with a limp.
Did you bring it in?
No, I put food. Well, Haley, we put food out for it earlier, and we don't know whose cat it is.
I just led it to the food. I actually left during the filming.
She went out the door during we were shooting the thing because the cat wouldn't shut up outside.